NSFW, what's the accidentally hottest thing done by someone who wasn't intending to turn you on? I went on a date last night with a girl that I have known for a while. After dinner we go back to her house to watch a movie. She changed out of her pants into shorts. When she comes back down the stairs, she apologizes for looking like a nerd because she had knee-high socks on under her pants and didn't change them. POW. Right in the fetish. I cut my finger on a beer bottle at a party. This girl casually walks by, stops and sucks the end of my finger without saying anything. Walks away. That happened 25 years ago and I still think about her all the time. Waitress spilled water on my lap and dabbed my shorts with a towel for a good 30 seconds. She got a good tip that night. Final year of uni. Doing a group project presentation. One of our group members was this really cool, pretty Swedish exchange student. We were sitting on the sidelines as one of our other group members was presenting. She leans over and starts whispering Swedish things in my ear. Holy shit. I turned to look at her and she blushes and giggled and apologized saying she got the wrong language. We had a lot of Swedish students in the course so they spoke it often among themselves. She then repeats herself in English. But I wasn't listening because I was too focused on the fact that I was about to stand up in front of a panel of industry professionals with a semi. My wife doesn't understand how much I like when she runs her hands through my hair. I'm a sucker for accents. Had a British girl come into my work for a few days in a row and every time she spoke I melted. I swear. If she had told me to go with her on a killing spree, I'd have gone. My wife knew she was wearing a blazer the next day for a meeting, but couldn't decide what skirt. So she was going back and forth to the closet for different skirts to see in the mirror, but the whole time only wearing the blazer and panties. SZS combination ever. I have a co-worker whom I usually spend breaks with smoking. We were outside last week and she was ranting about some stupid shit that went down over in her side of the office. We work in different departments. Anyhow she ended up getting pretty upset and while a thought has never crossed my mind involving her before, there was something about the way she was yelling and the look on her face that for some reason made me want to take her right then and there. Can't explain it and haven't had a similar thought since. I couldn't even look at her, I just stammered, "I have to go," and went back inside. Unrelated but honorable mention. I used to be a nude model for art classes back when I was in school. One time a girl drew my DCK really nice. That was cool. This one time a girl accidentally touched my arm for a split second. It was exhilarating. I have only experienced the reverse of this. Guy I dated in college was joking around with me in his dorm room. Stole my room key and put it in his pocket. I think it was a haha now you have to stay the night joke. This was years ago. We got distracted and I wound up staying a bit longer. And I guess he forgot about it. So when I finally went to leave, he stood to see me out. And I said, "You have something I need," and slipped my hand into his pocket. Took my key back and held it up with a smirk. His stunned reaction is permanently etched in my brain. I guess since I was, and am, a nerd girl and that was my first time, knowingly, inducing an instant boner. In any case, being a socially awkward nerd girl, I just laughed and said goodnight and left him to deal with it himself. Sorry guy. Oh grave circumflex diaresis. My co-worker laid his head on my lap on a long car trip home from the beach. Every minute or so he'd ever so slightly just twitch his fingers in a tiny caress of my knee. Oh my god. I work in a grocery store with lots of university-aged female cashiers and cash office staff. And a very lax stance on uniforms. Lots of yoga pants. A girl at work told me to kneel down and tie her shoe. I'm 6'4". And she's 5'7". I couldn't stand up immediately afterwards. There was a guy I knew liked me, but had no experience with women and was as much terrified of me as he was interested. I hugged him. And he was so ungodly. obviously nervous. His hands were shaking and I could practically feel his panicked heartbeat. And the Vagina says, "Yes. This is good to me." An old high school friend had a little sister who loved chopping wood, lumber, not boners. I went over to his house to help set up for a party and his sister was out splitting logs, again. The lumber, not boners. I don't know if it was the fact she was a 5'4" 90 blonde splitting wood, the lumber, not boners, in one strike or just her getting sweaty, but I've never been so hard. Now it's a boner, not lumber, before. Was at work. And I had this co-worker who was pretty hot, but I had a boyfriend at the time so I never pursued him. I was going to take out the trash and with this freaking smirk on his face he told me, double quote, "Good girl. Sploosh." Right in the submissive fetish. Halloween party. Co-worker went her slave lair. At one point her boyfriend couldn't hear what she was saying so he gently tugged on her chain to reel her in closer. Needless to say, it moved a little. Edit. Grammar. Gave me an absolute verbal smackdown. This was a bloke I knew in college, 16-18. And it was a long-standing pillar of our interaction to bicker and take the PSS. I'd been ribbing him about one thing or another, making the others around us laugh, when he causally laid out a quip that utterly blew any of my insults out of the water. It was just the way he did it, this lazy flick of sarcasm and wit, that had me both laughing in appreciation and inwardly screaming, "Take me now." I was at a neighborhood concert one time and this girl was making her way up to the front while the masses of people were pushing and kicking each other. This very cute girl stopped to talk to me to see what's up, and at that moment, everyone decided to sandwich together. So my body was pressed against her tightly. She was directly in front of me, facing me, and she was pretty humorous too because while we were literally face to face she said, "Nice weather we're having." Never saw her again, but I still think about her. When girls hear a compliment and are giddy yet confident at the same time. Usually a quick shrug, a giggle and a smile. I was hanging out with a female friend I had known for years. Never much sexual tension between us. She had just graduated and was spending her second to last night in her apartment before moving out across the country. Her best friend was hanging out with us. And we were all drinking and Skyping with her best friend's BF. I don't know what happened, but my friend and I got into an argument and started wrestling. Next thing I know, she's straddling me and we're both breathing heavily. And I'm obviously getting turned on. BFF and her boyfriend start joking about the situation. But it has suddenly gotten pretty warm in the room. BFF took her cue and left. And that's the night that I learned my good friend squirts like a blasto eyes. 10/10. Would recommend. One time I was drinking with one of my best friends and prior to this there had never ever been anything sexual between us. I wasn't even attracted to him. He was pretty awkward, slightly chubby, and on top of it, a good handful of inches shorter than me. He ends up giving me a back rub. I end up making moans of pleasure, because it was a really good back rub. One thing led to another. In the morning I was like, WTF just happened? Because like I said, never had any sexual feelings towards him. This began a very wild sexual platonic relationship with my best friend that lasted about a year. Hands down the best and kinkiest sex I've had to date. Always except the back rub. Folks. Oh god. Wait until I tell him that he gave me my highest rated comment on top of that. About 12 years ago I lived in Utah. A good friend was a rather plain looking, very religious, very repressed Mormon housewife. She came to a Halloween carnival at my kid's school dressed as a witch. It wasn't intended to be a SI witch costume, but it was low cut. That in conjunction with the dramatic witch makeup made her hot as hell. It was very jarring to see someone I had never given a second thought dressed that way. I wanted her so bad. I played it cool and tried to not let it show, but never saw her the same again. I was walking to lunch from my office and this incredibly beautiful woman, classy as hell, a really nice, tastefully short and airy dress, was jaywalking across the street. A car turned right from the intersection and has to stop while she crossed, and the guy decided to honk at her. She stopped dead in front of this guy's car and freaking spit on the hood. Seeing a beautiful, classy woman get so aggressive and disgusting really did it for me. So like, this is super weird, but it's happened with my guy best friend, classmates, even my manager at work. You know when guys have the quiff and it's like slightly gelled so it stays somewhat in place? Okay, so when a guy is working super hard or is really passionate or into whatever he is doing and like a few pieces of hair from the quiff lightly falls into their face. That is the hottest thing ever, and if I witness that moment I swear I instantly fall in love. Kinda the reverse for me. In a couple of my classes I would braid the hair of whichever girl was sitting in front of me. I made sure to ask that they were cool with it first. Turns out, after the first couple times of me doing this, that there was a little group that always talked about getting their hair braided, and they would have little arguments to find out who got to sit in front of me. Kinda cool, I guess. I mean, I just like braiding hair. I was on spring break a few years ago staying in this hostel with groups of travelers from all over the world. And one night as a group of us were sitting on the patio drinking and chatting about stuff, this hot dude from, I think, Australia, maybe, laughed at something his friend said, and I realized he had the deepest, chocolatist voice I had ever heard. Bam. Right to the clit. Was at a pool party and a guy with some great abs held onto the edge of the pool to lift himself out. The water ran down his chiseled arms when he came out of the pool. And that's how I found out I'm bisexual. In 7th grade, I had a crush on a girl that was very hostile towards everyone. And just all around difficult to get along with. She would frequently hit, slap, punch, scream at, and otherwise harm me and other people. Turns out that since that point, I like being dominated by women. I like when they're in control and use me for their pleasure and their own benefit. Or tease me. Or delay my gratification. I told her this, we were and still are really close. So a conversation like this isn't unusual. And she said, "Oh, really? Well, I have the opposite problem." And she winked. I was hanging out with a group of friends at the county fair one day a couple summers back, and I had accidentally got an awkward boner. Unfortunately, it was quite obvious. One of the girls I was hanging out with confronted me of my problem, and I tried denying this allegations. She then grabbed my crotch to prove me wrong. I'm not sure if she was trying to turn me on by this, but it totally worked. The awkward erection did not go away. My husband's glasses. We have both worn contacts for most of our lives. And when we've bought glasses, it's always been the cheapest pair. Since we don't wear them often enough to care, plus, you know, poor, we finally bought ourselves new glasses. And I swear my husband has never been easier. He cut his naturally curly hair short. And with the glasses, he looks like Clark Kent. I'm totally digging the look. The first time my GF came over to my apartment, she picked up one of my bare knits I had sitting next to my desk. She correctly identified it and the era it came from. Then she asked to see the rest of my collection. They seem weird, but that was insanely hot to me.